of Hurricane Katrina. The yellow line
in the North Atlantic, and then this is the one we really
155-mile-per-hour sustained winds. It's a Category 5.
If you live in the tropics near the ocean, you're likely no stranger to hurricanes. However, things can become a little bit more difficult to navigate when you have reptiles at home. My bearded dragons and I have been through many tropical storms and hurricanes all the way up to Category 5. We have also lost power to up to 10 days and water up to 48 hours. I wanted to make this video after a friend of mine had a bearded dragon pass away during hurricanes, so hopefully this will help other people keep their reptiles safe in storms. Luckily, as far as natural disasters go, these storms are pretty easy to predict. We have a large amount of warning time to evacuate compared to other natural disasters like a hurricane or a tsunami. It's important to follow the radar of your area so that if there is a threat to where you live, you'll be able to react quickly. Even if the storm isn't forecasted to hit you directly, it's still really important to have a plan because they can change directions at the last minute, and all of a sudden an area that was only going to get mild winds and rain is now getting 12 feet of storm surge. Just like you would for humans, it's important to have an evacuation plan if you are in a flood zone. You'll be able to tell you're in a flood zone by either looking it up or they'll say on TV. It's smart to have an evacuation kit ready. You want to bring enough water to last your bearded dragons 2 to 5 days. Sometimes really big hurricanes can damage water lines, so areas are cut off without water for a few days. Though it's more likely you'll lose electricity, water is still a big concern. Next, I am bringing my infrared thermometer. This is going to come in handy when I'm testing different locations for the bearded dragons to make sure they're adequate temperatures. It is not uncommon to lose power in a hurricane, so normal thermostats might not work. You're going to want to test your bearded dragon's enclosures as well as the house to make sure temperatures are above a certain level. Next, I will be packing extra basking bulbs for the bearded dragons. I have tanks ready set up for where we're going to evacuate to. However, I don't have extra bulbs there. And let's say when the power does come back on, a bulb dies, there might not be pet stores open right after the hurricane to get replacements. So it's good to always carry a few extras. Next on our list is a non-perishable bearded dragon food. I usually don't feed my bearded dragons a lot of pelleted food. However, in the case of a hurricane, let's say we lose electricity and I no longer have access to greens, this could be a good substitution just during that time. And as always, go ahead and bring that calcium powder too. I'm also going to bring my first aid kit for both humans and reptiles. You never know what could happen, so it's a good idea to always have one on hand, especially when a lot of stores are going to be closed. Some familiar items like blankets are also a good idea, just because the hurricane can be stressful for your bearded dragon, so it's nice to kind of have a comfort item. I'm also going to bring this little pop-up tent that will come into play later. I'm going to link it in the description. Next thing we're going to do is about 48 hours before the storm, we're going to mimic brumation conditions. So for people that are new to brumation, this is a period in the winter when bearded dragons become less active. Not all dragons will brumate, depends on the animal and the conditions. Bearded dragons will usually stop eating if they go into a full brumation period. This is because when they're brumating, they don't have the same heat that they have when they're basking. Heat is what helps the bearded dragon digest its food. So if your bearded dragon goes into its cave to sleep for a week and there's still food in its stomach, this can lead to some serious problems because the food can't be properly digested and it will rot. This could cause infections and other various diseases that are not good for your bearded dragon. To start our brumation imitation, we are going to remove the bearded dragon's food about 48 hours before the storm is expected to hit. Your bearded dragon may be confused, unhappy, it probably has a lot of questions, however we just can't answer those right now. Taking away this food will ensure that no organic matter is left inside their digestive system during the time when the hurricane hits. That way if we lose power, they're not going to have that food sitting in their system rotting. Next, we're going to really encourage basking right before the storm hits. This is so that your bearded dragon can digest whatever food it still has in its system, so that way when the storm hits, there won't be as much matter stuck inside their system. I then bathe my bearded dragons to encourage them to use the bathroom. We want to get everything out of their system before the storm hits, so it's good for them to go ahead and use the bathroom and to get a drink of water if they so desire. Once your bearded dragons have pooped, that is awesome. That is what we want to see. The more that we can get out of their little systems before the storm hits means it won't be sitting inside of them if the power goes out. We are now about 24 hours before the storm is predicted to hit, so we're going to go ahead and evacuate our current location to a safer location further inland. It's important to have tanks set up with proper lighting and heating at your new location if you do decide to evacuate. These tanks don't have all the fun decorations and things that their normal tanks have, however, it has the essentials. During the hurricane, it may be a frightful experience for your bearded dragons. There'll be lots of wind and rain, and the power may go out. Once you lose electricity, there's other hazards you want to be aware of. For example, flooding. There's also the threat of tornadoes from the hurricane winds, as well as fallen trees and other debris. Keep your bearded dragons in a secure, safe place once the power goes out. I recommend a hard shell carrier, so that if you do need to change rooms due to a hazard, you can quickly do so. Once the power goes out, it is important to try to keep your bearded dragons warm. You won't have access to normal heating systems like their basking lights or heat pads as the electricity is off, so your main source of heat is actually going to be yourself. Hold your bearded dragons close for as long as you can during the day to try to keep their body temperatures up. Eventually, the storm will pass. The electricity may not come on yet. However, the sun will eventually be out again. This creates perfect conditions for your bearded dragons to get the heat and UV that they need without electricity. You can reintroduce food, however, I would stay away from bugs and other live food that is more difficult to digest, and stick to simple grains and maybe some pelleted food. During this time, it's important that you supervise your bearded dragons, watch how they're acting, see if they're eating, and take account of their health. The power could be off for as long as 2 weeks in some areas, so it's important to have a system in place so that your bearded dragons can have outside time and have access to the sunlight and the heat. This is also where your infrared thermometer can be really helpful. You can take the temperature of the ground to see what temperature it's measuring at, what adequate heat the bearded dragon is or isn't getting. Areas commonly hit by hurricanes and tropical storms are in warmer climates, so it'll likely be warm enough. If you don't have a screened-in area for your bearded dragon, you can also use the pop-up tents. This one comes with a screen on top so that sunlight can still get in, while the bearded dragon can't get out. During this time, you're still going to want to monitor your bearded dragons, especially if they are just in a tent or an area that other animals may have access to. You want to watch, make sure no large birds of prey or other predators can access your bearded dragons. Once the power returns and you're back home with your bearded dragons, you can return to life as usual. Again, monitor your bearded dragons for possible changes in health. I hope this video was helpful to bearded dragon keepers. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching this bearded dragon care video.